Hi, everyone. Hayk here, and welcome to the Power of Mindset podcast. With this episode, I wanted to debrief an experience me and my team did today. Actually, this morning, we ran a Seattle half marathon, me and the guys from the office. Therefore, I'm wearing the shirt. They call it the finisher shirt, but they gave it to us day before the night of the expo when we were picking up the bib and also the shirt. I want to give you some thoughts because this is one thing I was talking to the guys earlier, loan car ride. So we discuss ideas on the way there and then on the way back. One of the things I was talking about is what goes through your mind during a race. And I really wanted their feedback when they were done. And I want to encourage people to actually really try to find themselves within these races. And I've mentioned on some of the recordings before, I had friends who read some book, and in one of the books, some CEO or some successful person talks about run a marathon, it'll change your life. And, I don't, as I mentioned before, if you watched the YouTube videos or listened to the podcast, or been in our coaching calls, I don't know what the answer is to run a marathon will change your life, whether it's a half marathon, whatever, like we did this morning. But I can tell you this, there's a certain thought process and certain things your body goes through when you're pushing yourself to see what you're made of beyond the boundaries of what you're used to in the norm and the comfort, where you discover more about yourself, as in you see what you're made of. Because I've seen a lot of people who get very comfortable in their life, and they lose motivation, they lose grit, they get stuck in this rut, and they want to almost reinvent themselves. And if anybody has read the book Living with the Seal with Jesse Itzler, who talks about he was stuck in the rut, he, I believe at the time, was a billionaire, or this is right before he married Sarah Blakely, where he had sold his company for $100 million. And as again, he was getting to a point where he needed some motivation in his life, and that's how he made David Goggins. And he was describing the story about running into him at a 100-mile fundraiser event where him and his buddies were doing a relay. David Goggins did the whole thing by himself. And he was very much attracted to the hunger, that hunger feel of somebody coming out and gritting out this 100 miles on their own. And he saw him, he had bloody feet, he was peeing out blood, his kidneys had failed, but the guy finished. As in, like, what kind of a hunger does this man have? If I could just expose myself to him, I'll get some of my hunger back. So, and this is a feedback, a discussion I had with the guys earlier this morning. We're talking about why it is important to push yourself. So I'll make this episode a little bit about fitness, and I want to jump into a couple of other things, few items I wrote down as a result of my thoughts during this race. And I hope this encourages you to go find something that's going to help you push yourself. And think of it this way, right? And this is the example we used in our discussion today. Obviously, everybody works a lot, right? So either, you're working to get out of some place or to get someplace or to move or to live somewhere else, or you're working for income to get financially independent one day, work towards retirement. No matter what you do, when you're working for income, there's a goal, right? And typically, as your income rises, you start doing things to make your life easier, right? You have options. That's all it is with income. Instead of driving the car that always breaks down, now I can afford a car that starts every time and gets me to work. Instead of eating at this restaurant, and I can get to eat at that restaurant. Instead of wearing these clothes that are low quality, I can buy the higher quality clothes. Instead of investing a little bit and having a little bit in the emergency fund, now I can have a lot saved in an emergency fund so I can sleep better at night. So money always gives you comfort. So like it or not, as you progress through life and you improve your financial tank, you get softer. You get nicer, you get kinder in many ways. Yes, money does amplify who you are. Some say assholes turn into bigger assholes. I agree, by the way. I know people like that. But in many ways, it does buy you comfort that makes you soft. Soft as in you can kind of lose your grit in life. And if you think about, like, there's been a ton of videos in social media, and then there's YouTube and National Geographic where they talked about some of these tribes in Africa that are still living the way our ancestors lived, who were hunting for a living, no television, no technology. And it was funny, I was watching this episode where they talked about as they approached some of these tribes and told them about, people in some of these worlds and some of these countries that have everything that these tribes don't, as in comfort, cars, luxury, unlimited food. The fridge is full of it. And this is where the depression, anxiety, and a lot of people who are victims of suicide come from, as a result of anxiety and depression. When they were mentioning these stories to some of these tribe members, they were laughing, saying, what do you mean you want to take your life? Like, life is the best thing you have. Like, we can't wait to wake up. They're happy. They don't even know if they're going to have food next day. But there was no such a thing as not being happy. Happiless was just given. As in, like, it's very human to be happy, but it's part of suffering and also opposite of comfort, right? So again, if you notice, in the last decade, depression rates have been over the roof. As a matter of fact, post-COVID, where things got even more convenient. As in now you click a button, things show up. Technology made our life easier. And you notice anxiety, depression, motivation levels have been changing towards the worse. As in we're more anxious, we're more stressed out, people being diagnosed with some kind of a anxiety related mental issues over the roof. Psychologists are talking about it. So what is happening with the society? Because something new has been exposed and we're easily getting access to it, which is comfort. So people are becoming less and less motivated, more and more comfortable. And many people are actually getting sick because of it. And obesity is also part of comfort, right? Again, we are overwhelmed with the amount of food that we have access to. So our body doesn't like comfort. As in you put your body physically through comfort, as in you feed it every time you want to eat something, and you're comfortable skipping the workout. You keep doing these comfortable things. What happens? Obesity, sickness, diseases, and now you have a bag of prescription medication to just keep you alive enough to keep taking those. And if we think about these things, right? So as you progress in life with comfort, discomfort kicks in. Weight loss management, motivation levels change. And the amount of people that actually come to me, some of my peers in the business who are doing really well, often like, again, they read a book, some CEO said, go run a marathon, change your life. Again, my feedback has always been, what's going on in your life now? And I noticed with the financial tank being taken care of, they're getting comfortable and solved. So they want to do something difficult to bring this grind back into their life. Just the way Jesse Eitzler was talking about meeting David Goggins. Like you get too much comfort, you almost want to seek a way out to bring discomfort back into your life instead of avoiding discomfort. Well, we get so good at having money solve the problems. We get to this place where we live in a zip code we want to live. It's comfortable. Crime rates are lower. Food is available. People are just nicer overall. We drive the car we want to drive. We swap it out every couple of years when the lease is over, or you trade it in for the new one. Again, this almost being spoiled with the financial tank doing its job plays against us long term. So, and I notice people on the highest level somehow gravitate towards difficult things like running. Again, going back to our discussion, you can't really get your ambition back by going back to the hood. Like I grew up in the hood. Like the one of the highest crime rates right now is around questionably the high school I went to, Todd Beamer High School in Federal Way, and I lived in SeaTac and Federal in Tukwila, for those who are familiar with Washington. I'm glad I left. Okay, let's just put it that way. We had gangs, questionably almost joined one. One of my friends did 17 years in jail because of the gang-like activities. It was just surrounded. It was everywhere, left and right. Would I ever put myself back to get my ambition and hunger back? Absolutely not. I worked my butt off to get out of that situation of my early pursuing the American dream phase of my life. So if I got out of that phase, why would I want to go back? So I've built this almost cloud balloon soft like life. And one of my fears is like my children are not seeing some of the difficult days that give me the ambition that I have. But often I always feel like, man, I kind of miss that hunger. I remember when I was just got really serious about marathons and I was really hungry about Boston Marathon. It's all I wanted to do. And everybody talked to me. I just, my hunger and my passion for the sport, I was like recruiting people in to run with me. As in things got softer, things got easier, options got better. And all of a sudden kind of losing that. So I try to go back. And again, I try to meet with the people who are doing it. I try to do the same exercise they're doing it. And it comes back often. And here's the point I'm trying to make with the feeling, that ambition coming back. Because when we're not going to the physical thing, right? We expose ourselves to the very people who are doing the very physical things to bring our physical ambition back. And we avoid them because we're so comfortable. We're used to clicking buttons and things happening for us. That leads to having a non-ambitious mindset, which turns into anxiety and negativity. It's like, why would I even do that kind of stuff? But the more I go back to the physical, right? Again, I ran today. It was miserable. It was an hour and 34 minutes of just misery. Heart rate of 165 the entire time. But I was more jazzed up, more excited, and happier than doing anything that money can buy. And I'm not saying you should be running 8 hours a day, but occasionally going back to the difficult thing that brings that ambition back temporarily leads and feeds into the rest of the day. Again, maybe if you sell off your house, or at least temporarily go back to the hood, if that's where you're from, and to bring your ambition back might be the thing that might motivate you. But that's not a good best practice. Rappers leave the hood for a reason. I've left SeaTac and Tukwila for a reason. Again, to bring the hunger back, I'm not going to move back just to get the feelings back, but you can truly go back to the exercise, and specifically running, not triathlons, maybe swimming, maybe cycling as well, cardiovascular exercise, because that's what our ancestors did for thousands of years. And to feel more human, You do the things that we humans did for the longest time to be happier. And when you're happier, you're more ambitious, you're more positive, and you might end up writing a book that says, run a marathon, it'll change your life. And somebody else will ask somebody else who ran a marathon, what does that mean? Well, do it and you'll find out. It's more mental than physical. It brings ambition back. And I think one of the reasons why I've been so engaged and I'm still active within the business and the community, if I go back and think about what did I do right? I haven't detached myself away from the sport in over a decade. That's why I've been consistent, because this, I can get up tomorrow and do it. But to reattach yourself to a business where you disconnect yourself from, or your family or relationship that you slowly let slide away from you, that's a hard one to fix overnight. Well, the fitness, you can go back to the gym right away. So that's an easy fix, quick. It's difficult, but it's simpler than everything else. So that was my message and my thoughts as I was running today and sharing with my team. The other part to this video that I want to talk to you guys about is, for example, I asked to run this race. I wanted to run this race, right? And I was recovering from my injury in Boston Marathon when I had a bad knee. And this is the first time I ran hard. So I felt great knowing the fact the problem's gone. But think about whatever you want, right? It sounds fancy. Boston Marathon, or start a business, or get married, have good friends. So all those, the 4 pillars I talk a lot about, they all come with a side of fries. As in, it comes in a package. You can't just unrealistically want things and get them exactly how you want. Again, I wanted to do certain things on sports. I got injured. Instead of becoming negative, I treated it like a temporary moment in my permanent journey of always rediscovering myself and being uncomfortable. Again, it went away and nothing changed mentally. A lot of people run into this side of fries, or the things that come in a package, and they change who they are. They stop being forgiving. They stop being kind, or they stop doing the thing itself, which got them to where they are. So if you think about this for a second, if you're not grateful and almost mature enough to understand that as children, we ask for a bike and we got a bike, right? We ask for the teddy bear, we got the teddy bear. We ask for the chocolate, we got the chocolate. Well, as we get more complicated, right? Human needs get more complicated. We have PTSD of needs at this point. So when complicated needs become a complicated want, and we really think it's needs, in reality, it's wants, the type of the car we want to drive, the type of the business we want to have, the type of lifestyle, the zip code we want to live in. It all comes with complicated conditions. It's inside of fries. And you have to be willing to expect that there's going to be something that you don't want to deal with, right? When people are expecting this perfect marriage, no, reality is you're going to have the arguments and the disagreements and the decisions you have to make and the sacrifice you're going to have to make, right? So when the side of fries comes, the package comes that you didn't want to see because you're just so blinded and trained to think that if you want a box of chocolate, it all comes with the box of chocolate. The truth is you have to expect the side, the complicated side. Marriage is a complicated thing. Running a business, very complicated thing. Having a good level of fitness. Well, everything always changes. So does your health and your physical well-being. So does your muscular structure and your bone density. You have to, again, change with it. And sometimes when things don't go your way, like I had my injury, I had to keep myself positive. Because when people get negative, everything changes. Something happens with the business, an IRS audit, argument with a spouse. We change the very thing that got us to where we are. So I think being more complex and understanding that as we're getting more complex, we want more complex and we want more difficult, complicated things. The side of fries will be more complicated and it'll be more difficult to solve. So difficulties are a good thing. It's just the result of the things that you want very much. And one piece I want to talk about that is the relationship piece, right? So again, we all have friends. And there's a convenience thing to friendship, right? So maybe heavily talk about the friendship pillar on this one. As I have some friends who are dealing with some difficult things right now due to a divorce, one of them due to a business issue. And I notice my positive energy and I guess I have an old soul, so I get lots of calls and they just want to talk, right? And earlier I told my friend, I'm like, there's absolutely nothing I can do to help you. And his response was, he's like, I haven't lost anybody, but I'm just going through so much crap. I feel like somebody died. So I guess maybe I'm calling you, Hayk, just to mourn with me. As in, I just want a shoulder to talk to. Somebody maybe to give me an idea, just to be positive. And that's a piece that I noticed, like there's few of my friends, and I am needed more now than ever before, because when things were convenient and they were calling me for the party or in a good time and, just to spend the good news time together, it was easy to be friends with them, right? Well, it's difficult now because every phone call is like, what now? What lawsuit paperwork is he going to be served next that I now have to talk to him about and mourn with him about and be sad about and complain about? And that's the side of fries to good friendship, because if I think about my best friends now that I've dear, good long-term relationship with are the ones that we had something like that in the past and I overcame. Instead of ignoring, saying, it's a bad friend, they're negative. No, people go through things. And at one point, it might be me. The question is, what did I do with the friend that needed me right now the most? And I set aside my pride and my, man, I'm having negative conversations with this person. No, you don't change. There's this unconditional love that God teaches us to have. In reality, this is what builds relationships. Not avoiding the difficulty, but facing it. Because the side of fries in good relationship will have with good side of issues. Because the closer you are to somebody, they're going to express their issues more. So if they're going to express their issues more, then that's how you build a better relationship. So if you don't have good relationships, maybe ask yourself the question, well, what am I doing when things get difficult to build that deep, meaningful relationship to have long, everlasting, long-term friendship? That's a big piece I've been thinking about a lot, because I do have friends going through some stuff right now. I think I don't know if it's a post-COVID thing. I don't know if it's an economical thing right now, but I think that if you're listening to this message and you are that positive person, just know the difficulty that's being presented to you now, it's more common, actually, I'm noticing now than ever before, or maybe it's an economical thing, who knows? But I do know the darkest nights produce the brightest stars. So therefore, if you want the best possible bright relationships during the darkest times, you have to hang in there and have hope, because stars are coming. And 5 years, 10 years from now, when you have this dear relationship, this tight, where people are envious, man, I want a best friend like that. What's a result of the difficulty that you were willing to solve that nobody else was, which brought you closer together. And think about the relationship piece with your spouse, the difficult conversations when they happen, the side of fries. Are we unrealistically avoiding them, saying, why me? Victim mentality? Are you problem focused, or you're solution oriented? This is the time to build a relationship. When my team comes to me with issues, instead of me saying, great, I'm sick and tired of having issues in this business, but I'm like, hold on a second. My best team members I've hired, who I've spent years and years training and developing, and payroll and taxes and all the stuff that a lot of employers are like looking at as like a victim mentality thing. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And they're like, I just want to have like your team. But you don't realize the same problems that I didn't give up on, and I continuously coached on, and I continuously forgave, and I continuously took them out on one-on-ones and talks and life coaching and business coaching and sales coaching and service coaching. Well, that's what led to the relationships that other people envy and want, because there was a point that I had to give up on people and I didn't. I don't have too many superpowers. I'm not the smartest, brightest apple on the tree, but I can tell you I have a lot of gratefulness for my relationships. I have a lot of gratitude, and I forgive quickly. Not that somebody might not deserve it. No, it's the right thing. It's less weight on my shoulders. So the next relationship issue that comes up, I can welcome it better without extra weight on my back. So that being said, think about that. When the difficulty comes in a relationship, whether if it's your friends or going through crap, might be you one day, if it's with your spouse or your kids or your employees or your manager, that difficult place is where you want to spend a lot of time. Because like it or not, no matter what you want in life, as you grow older, it gets more complicated. So the issues, the side of fries gets more complicated. Well, in reality, a lot of the magic is hidden there. So spend some time and really try to find the opportunity within the hidden place where most people avoid. That's where relationships are built. And those were my thoughts during my run today, and I want to share that with you guys. Cheers, and till next time.